Welcome to the Buff Show. I got Kyle and Zoe Stapley. They're past clients of mine. They just bought a new construction house. Been what now? A couple months?
Yeah, end of September.
September. So I'll let them kind of give you a little bit of background about them and tell them who you guys are and stuff. So
Awesome. Go ahead.
Well, Kyle and Zoe, I introduced us there, but both from Oregon originally, right? Obviously.
Yep.
So we got in touch with
We went to school together. Yep.
Yeah, knew you from high school, but kind of been, back in the area for 3-4 years now. Went down to New Mexico for a couple of years. Came back, rented for a little while, started looking at homes.
No, it was quite a while. It was almost like a year and a half, 2 year process.
About 2 year process.
Yeah,
of
definitely.
sending properties, saying no, right?
A lot of no's.
A lot of no's, a lot of things we didn't like. Till we kind of stumbled on the right one.
So with that being said, what made you guys choose the new build route?
I mean, definitely wasn't our intention.
Right.
We had been, like you had said, we had been looking for close to a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And new builds were never really on our radar just because of the price point. But what ultimately led us to choosing a new build over an older home for less money was the incentives that the builder offered us as far as.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you remember, we went and walked that new build and then went and walked a house like immediately after that had like wiring on the outside of the drywall.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell it was just put together really sloppy. And it's kind of the idea of I can spend more money per month right on a house that I'm going to have to gut and redo everything.
Right.
Or spend a little bit more and go into something that's brand new, and any projects are just things that we want to do. Have to do.
Right.
And the payment is relatively the same because of the lower interest rate.
Incentives, yep.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is a lot of these new construction homes and builders have to move properties. The longer that property stays on the market, the more they lose on that property. And so it gives them a pretty big incentive to try and get that property moved. And so a lot of the builders will offer some pretty good rate buy downs or whatever it is. So in your guys' opinion, pros and cons of new construction. So as you guys went through the process of purchasing and closed, what are some of the pros and cons you guys saw?
For me, a huge pro of a new construction was nobody has lived in it.
Right.
So there's no weird smells. There's no weird anything. I'm the first one. I don't have to worry about pet fur or anything like that. That was a big pro for me.
It's funny you bring that up because I have a client that I'm working with right now who just kind of brought that same thing up. She has a hard time moving into a house because the last house was a brand new build. And
yeah,
I'm like, oh, I never even really thought about that. But yeah.
Another big pro, we've already touched on it a little bit, is the incentives.
Right.
Right. It's ultimately got us in the door and made it even possible for us to buy that home.
For sure. Any cons you guys can think of?
Nothing huge. I mean, we moved into a relatively cookie cutter neighborhood, and so with that, like you said, they're trying to turn the houses over fairly quickly, and so they might not be the highest quality, or in some like just simple things like in the closet, if you'll remember, it was just all installed wrong, and it's like, oh, we could just do that the right way.
Right.
So small stuff like that, but nothing huge.
Okay, absolutely. You?
I think one potential con, and that's been huge for us because, we got a little boy that loves it, but you are a lot of times moving into a construction zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, where they're finishing the houses next to us, all these different things.
Absolutely.
Track house in the backyard, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Next question I'm going to ask you guys is, was it worth it having an agent, or would you give me your honest feedback on what you guys buying through the buying process and once you went under contract to closing, was it worth it to you guys to have an agent? Yes. And why, or no, and why? And what were some of the things that you may have been caught off guard or maybe wouldn't have known if you didn't have an agent?
We've actually talked about this a lot.
Oh, good.
100% yes.
Okay.
If you would have asked me 3 months ago, like as we were going through the process at the same time, some people that we know were going through the process without a real estate agent, I was kind of like, well, why do we need a real estate agent and they don't? Like the people that represent the builder seems to be doing a fine job.
For sure.
But now meeting some of our neighbors and knowing what they have gone through, even with a real estate agent, I'll add that having the right real estate agent, I think is really important too. They were jerked around quite a bit. Whereas for us, it felt like me and Kyle could communicate with each other and we could communicate to you and Michaela. And then you took it from there. You represented us versus us having a real estate agent and then still having to communicate with the sales agent. That wasn't a thing that we had to do, but it is something that a lot of people that we're talking to now have had to deal with, and it wasn't as pleasant for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and definitely with the push for them to turn homes, like you talked about, it felt like there were some times that the office may have been a little bit sloppy with paperwork, or things got sent that weren't the right numbers, weren't the right papers, things that on our own would have been very stressful.
Right.
Or a lot more stressful. Nice to be able to pick you and Michaela's brain on that.
Yeah. And so, and here's my honest opinion on it. So you get this all the time. You get first-time home buyers who've never been through the process before, and it's already stressful. It's a big purchase. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of contracts that you guys have never seen. And then you get the new build stuff in where you're using the builder's contract, and it's a 50-page contract, right? Nobody wants to read 50 pages, right? It's a lot, and it's a lot of verbiage. It's just monotonous, I guess. You know what I mean? And then on the other side of it, like you were talking about how the agent that's representing the builder, per se, most of them mean well, and they're great agents. But a lot of times, at the end of the day, who pays them money is the builder. They are not there to represent you. They are there to represent the builder.
For sure.
And so even though they're supplying you contracts, they're giving you guys all that type of stuff, they may not have your best interest at heart at all times, right? Some may. I have actually worked with some listing agents that work with builders that will push to give the buyers a incentive or to give them a better rate or something like that, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, I've also worked with agents where they work for the builder, and they're gonna fight for the builder, right? Are there any surprises that caught you guys off guard going through the process?
I mean, I was surprised with how many things we found on our different walkthroughs.
Yeah.
Little things, talked about the closet, things with the floor, things that I wasn't expecting to have that big of a list.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Of like, hey, these need to be fixed before we close.
Absolutely.
Again, that's where it came in handy, though, to have Kade and Michaela, because you do it all day, every day, so you knew more what to look for. And then also a third-party inspection, which, like you said, even that, we got a little bit of pushback from the builders, but ultimately we still chose to do it, and it was worth it because there were quite a few things that wouldn't have been detrimental necessarily, but they fixed, and we didn't have to.
Absolutely. I think that's another big point to touch on is even though you're buying a new home, it is not a perfect home.
Yeah.
And nor will it probably ever be, but it can be a lot closer than it is. And so getting a third-party inspection is crucial because if you don't have a third-party inspection, you do have, 2 blue tape walkthroughs, which are great. But the problem with that, again, who is paying that person who's walking you through the home? The builder, right? So they may not, or they probably won't point out any major things, or they may not just look and know to even point those out. And so it's really crucial to have a third-party inspection done. That way it costs you $800 at most usually, right? And you can pay that, and they can go in there and they can really thoroughly look through the property. And so I have done a couple new builds where they fight you hard on having a third-party inspector in there.
One more thing on that too. That was really nice having you and Michaela because you already knew somebody that did a great job and could get us in. It wasn't like we were like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden we feel like we need to find somebody to do an inspection. Like you had that connection. Yeah. Because we trusted you. We ultimately trusted your recommendation.
Looking back, is there anything you guys would change?
No, I don't think so.
No?
But I think part of that is because, like we talked about at the start, we took 2 years through the process, right? Like we took our time. We were really picky about the home we wanted to get into. And because of that, by the time we were ready to get into a home, it felt like, okay, we've checked all of our boxes. We've looked through things we want. We know what we want.
Awesome.
This fits up.
Awesome. Awesome. Any advice for a potential other buyer, somebody who because what I'll do is if I have another buyer who's looking to buy a new construction home, I'm gonna send them probably this podcast. So I want you guys to give any advice to them about the process, things you guys didn't think you would, encounter, or that you're grateful you had, or whatever it is. Any advice you can think of.
I mean, we've already touched on it quite a bit, but I would say the first thing is making sure you have a real estate agent that you mesh with,
Right.
that you get along with, and is not just somebody that, you picked up off the street. Like,
Right.
we get along with you and Michaela. We trust your recommendation.
Awesome.
You know what we're looking for. That I would say is a big thing.
The other one with the new build, just because it helped us so much, is they look into the incentives.
Yeah.
Right. See who's offering buy downs, who will do discounted rates, what's going on if you use their lender or you go and get your own. Because that can be a game changer.
Absolutely. One thing I'll throw in there as well. Just because it's a new build does not mean that it's not negotiable, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's a new build and the price is $400,000, whatever it is, it does not mean that is the set price and that's the only price it can be. Everything is still negotiable on a new build, and I think having an agent would help with that a bunch. Most people, they come in, they, like you said, they bully you quite a bit. They kind of push you around, but everything is still negotiable, and that means that purchase price, closing costs can also be added in there and stuff like that.
I would say too, another thing with the new build is like, don't necessarily take the builder's representative word for what it is. They're like, just as far as like, oh, we're gonna get you guys closed within this time frame. It never really is that time frame, so just be flexible with that. Especially in our position, we were lucky. Our landlord of the place we were living was super chill, and we were able to just be in communication with him. But it wasn't like we had to be out and plan to be in to our new place at a certain time, because dates change.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, a closing date changed, and then I know they were throwing figures out on monthly payments and things like that where they were not close on the walkthrough, right? Like throwing some different things out. So verify their numbers.
Definitely talk with a lender, run all numbers by them. We can, with whatever incentives it is, it's usually closing costs. And we can run those numbers by the lender too, and he can give you guys different scenarios. Obviously, if they have a preferred lender to get the incentive, they're going to use it for whatever it is they're incentivizing. But anyways.
And honestly, that wasn't bad. I was a little weary, like, oh, we have to go through their preferred lender versus we had been talking to our own lender previously, but they were really awesome.
Most of the time they are.
And it was no big
deal.
deal.
They were excellent to work with.
So that's another.
Okay. Awesome. Anything else you guys want to add in there?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.